Go. I am Andrew Greenberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Game Developers Association. I'm also a partner in Holistic Design. Battles of Destiny was the project of our first company, Several Dudes Holistic Gaming, back in '92. A classic 4X strategy, 4X standing, of course, for explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate, where you explore the world and the resources, you expand your control over the resources, exploit them to make weapons, and exterminate, or at least win the game. So, with Battles of Destiny, we had a very simple, fun game, but we also shipped the map editor with the game. This was fun talking to Tim Ryan about map editors for games. He's created additional resources to keep a game going. So with Battles of Destiny, we have a map editor, and with the new GOG version, it's now accessible again to players and folks who want to make their own maps. Yes, and Tim is over in our Discord chat right now, if you want to go chat with him. So, the Battles of Destiny map editor. Let's go ahead and pop that open, see how simple it is, and it's actually what we use to make the levels in the game itself. So, when you open up Battles of Destiny, you get the option for Battles of Destiny or the map editor, so we'll go straight into the map editor. Several Dudes Holistic Gaming presents Battles of Destiny map editor. How exciting. Give a default 100 by 100 map. Yes, theoretically, you can go ahead and create a 1 by 1 map if you so desire. That would be insane, but yes, you could. But you can also access all the saved maps we shipped with it, or that you might have gotten from friends trading these around on your floppy disks or through your BBS services. So let's take a quick look at that. Yeah, these were all the maps that shipped with it. You can see land and all other sorts of things on each design. That's our beginner map. Every island perfectly balanced, can start with up to 4 players. The chaos map. Yeah, lots of good insanity. And of course, you can change all these maps. The compete map, continent, basically one continent with some islands. The dust map is an insane one to try and succeed on. The Earth itself. A fair world, where you could each have basically 1/4 of it and then battle it out. The Fester map, where you start right up on each other, see how small it is. An islands map. The landlocked map, so that the battleships don't mean quite as much, but when you have them, boy, do they do some damage. The ring map. I'll explain the ring map a little bit later. The rivers map. Look how these rivers go. These are actually world wrapped. This is the entire world. It's actually circular, though it's laid out flat. So you could be sailing down here and pop, you come back up here on the top end. Our version of the South Pole, as we see global warming. And this game was from '92 when we were worried about global warming. The snake map, a nice snaky world. Yeah, all of this is all connected. These aren't separate islands. This is all one big continent, essentially. Sprinkle map, again, another fun small one. Target, looks like a bullseye. Tecton, I remember this one being especially fun. The tiny map, tiny map. 2 seas, you've got 2 seas to do battle on, so your ships can't move between the seas. So you need to build navally on each one. Thailand. Ty was one of the developers, and this was his favorite map that he made. So in the game, you've got land units, infantry, artillery, tank destroyers, armored units, planes, fighters and bombers, a wide variety of ships. As you can imagine, you need them here. You've got infantry and artillery transports. You've got armored transports. You've got real quick hovercraft. You've got patrol boats, frigates, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, aircraft carriers, all sorts of fun things. So you take all these into account. You want to give all the units their own role in it. Oh yeah, you could have drones. Again, '92, we were already planning on drone warfare. I like to think of all the units as drones in most strategy games. Not killing any people. It's all just non-sentient, not living stuff. But anyway, when we shipped the game, it shipped with this map editor, so anyone can use it. So let's actually go ahead and create a new map. We'll go with 100 by 100. That's a good default size. And it scrolls. You can see the numbers changing. You can't see anything scrolling because there's nothing here right now. We let you start with everything as water. The editor was released in '92, Tim. So we shipped it with the game, and we actually used this map editor to make all those different maps I was showing before. I should have opened one of those up. Let's load one up and just show the full map. And drop all. Yeah, so cities, forest, swamp, hills, mountains, and lots of ocean between them. So basically, you try and conquer one island first, then use it to take over other islands, and then confront the other AI or human players, take their cities. And AI would eventually surrender if your victory became too obvious. You became too indomitable. But the humans, of course, could hold on as long as they wanted to hold on and keep playing it. So the best games, obviously, always multiplayer games. But I love the AI in it, too. Have a lot of fun with it. The hard AI is pretty tough. And actually, that'd be a whole nother presentation. We did a wide variety of AI in this. I think there's 9 different levels of AI. And the easy AI is pretty easy to defeat. And the hard AI will definitely give you a run for your money. So, Pixeltopia. Yeah, I love those. Yeah, classic pixel look. Oh, yeah, check out the map editor again. I mean, this is taking you in the way back machine. So, stop. Oh, yeah, you see how the world map wraps. So, here's this island with the swamp right there in the middle. And we go wrap, and there's that island again. So, you can sail from one end to the other of the world. But, all right, let's go ahead and start new. So, yeah, you're talking about the pixel look, Tim. Oh, my goodness. Definitely have the pixel look here. So we'll start. Let's get a little bit of grass down. Look at that, Tim. Does it get more pixel than that? Yes. So just build it here. Hey, look, there's a little river you can escape out on. Not anymore. Mwahaha. So this was the map editor tool that the level designers use. So there are neat things you can do. For instance, you can fill. So I've got this whole area. If I just want to quickly fill it, I can hit the fill to like. Since I've been using grass, it'll fill that entire enclosed area to grass, kind of like how Photoshop does the fills. Yeah, classic terrain painting. That's exactly right. When you're basically making your levels like you're painting a picture. So a lot of the fun with this game was how you would design these levels. And there's a classic story about Will Wright when he made Raid on Bungling Bay, which was a game I played a lot of on a Commodore 64 way back when. The game was a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing it, but Will Wright used to talk about how he more enjoyed building the levels, working with his level editor, building the world, than he did actually playing the game, and that's what led him to make SimCity. So hardest JPEG ahead of its time. Yeah, there you go. Tim asked the obvious question, would people put their initials in a level? And the obvious answer is, could you stop them? Now, we didn't ship with any like that, but obviously some people are going to go ahead and do exactly that. And yes, we saw entire worlds that were a person's name, which is always a lot of fun. Just put a word in here, preferably not an obscenity. But yeah, people would sign their work as the work and make those islands and the like to go ahead and conquer, make that the entire continent. And I've saw faces. They were a lot of fun. Yeah, Michael Hodges had the same experience with Neverwinter's Nights too. Loved the map editor. Yeah, I remember that map editor. I played around with it a little bit when it shipped. That had a bit more that you could do with it than you can do with ours. We haven't even looked at the terrain. Let's take a look at all the incredible terrain that we can add to AG Island. Grass, hill, mountain, swamp, forest, water. Yep, plenty. Let's look at those lovely hills. And, oh yeah, for those of you who don't have to deal with this kind of 2D look, there's a hill, and here's a hill. Then look what happens when we have to have a transition between them. Look, the art changes. You get different types of hill now as it transitions. Wait, that one just changed as the art transition comes about. Yeah, you had to, in order to make these hills not just look like the same block over and over, you make them change and change and change again. So we would actually, I think this is an example of it, where you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think you would have 9 different versions of each terrain type so they could mesh. Obviously, grass is just grass. But let's see, I'll show you the same with mountains. Okay, here's just a standard mountain. Here's another mountain then, but connect them, and the mountains change. Different art had to come in to do the connection. So, yeah, not as much here as in Neverwinter 2, I will admit, but it's still plenty of fun stuff. Everything's got its own attributes. Different units get better defense in each of them. Some units can't go into some of these. So mountains and swamp, the armored units can't go into. In the mountains, swamps, the infantry gets a lot of defensive ability. Less in the hills and the forests. And obviously armor does its best straight on these open plains, and artillery does best pounding folks who are just open plains. So if you want to survive the artillery, you go hide in the mountains for a while. And really oh yeah, and you could add more water, so I could put a little lake in here now. The cities were the most important terrain, so whoops, still got water going on. Place city. All right, grass, and then there's my city. So I could put cities on each end. That's right. There are a few problems with this map editor. Number one being there is no Control Z, no undo. Oh, agony, agony, agony. We apologize for that. Any of us who've had to work with this apologize for that. But still plenty of stuff you can do. And I mean, you're not making giant, massive maps. I mean, you can make some pretty big maps that are a lot of fun, and you really wish you had that Control Z, but you learn to work around it. So now I got 2 cities, so theoretically we could have 2 players starting this one on one side, one on the other. Or I could go ahead and we could have cities here and here as well, and now we can do a 4-player game with them going to it, but obviously these 2 players have a little bit more time before they get into combat, and these 2 will be fighting folks pretty quickly. So you do want to try and balance. Now, I'm the kind of level designer, I like choke points. I like places where you know that the enemy is going to be coming from. So doing something like this. And they're going to send armor down here. They're sending it right down the middle. Otherwise, it's all infantry through the mountains. Which makes an interesting choke point, because the infantry is pretty defended while they're in the mountains. Harder to kill. Of course, as soon as they're in that big open area, then you're taking them out. But yeah, choke points, much, much fun. All kinds of neat things to do. Oh, yeah, you're right. This is another way to do the put your abbreviations. Anyone here? Do we know any JTs out there? We could have a JT right here. I don't know, Artisan JPEG. You know anyone who fits that bill? Someone named JT has gone ahead and signed this one. Let's make it more obvious. All right, there we go. So now we've got JT's map. And we've got this nice little choke point. Yeah, all right. It was a T. I can make it a P if you want me to, JP. Artisan JPEG, I should say. All right. So, you saw a few of the basic ones that we began. Obviously, those smaller ones are easier and quicker to turn out. So, you create a few islands. Generally tried to put 2 cities on it. I mean, you saw we had a lot of these where it just had 1 city right on an island. That meant that if you wanted to take it from somewhere else, you had to either bring in a helicopter with airdrop troops to capture it or bring a transport ship to capture it. And these little 1 dots could be hard to capture because you run the helicopters. They could miss the drops and paratroopers would land in the ocean and drown. Or if you brought in the boats, you've got time to sink the boats so that no troops. You got to have like 6 armored units on a lander, but those 6 troops would never get to you if you could sink that 1 lander before it got to you. They can be tough to take, but they also can only develop a limited amount of stuff. If you build an infantry here, there's no getting that infantry off the island until you also build a helicopter. Tim Ryan says, an algorithm I use for painting on the grid to get the different road and hill shapes right, use bitmath and XOR to get the index of the tile set based on what 8 tiles are next to a tile. Yeah, we actually did individual handcrafted one. I wish we'd done it programmatically, but we went ahead and hand designed each of those different terrain tiles. Artisan JPEG is recommending we turn the JT into an AT-AT. All right, so when we're doing the islands, often what we would do is we would do 2 to 3 cities on it. And I'm using the I button once I select a place to then put the city in. Cities are your production centers. So there's no resources around it they need to collect. They just make, based on their size, level 1 to 6. And something you could build was their industrial capacity. So they could start at level 1 and go to 6. You would start with a level 6 city at the start of the game. So right now, I could, if I just took this city, I could now build infantry or attack destroyers or something and go capture that city, and then build a troop transport there and keep building these troops, send them there, get them all in troop transport, go over here and capture that one. However, maybe someone over here has captured 3 cities, and they've got their transports going, but they've also built bombers, and they're coming out and attacking your planes along the way. It was an interesting balancing act in these games to put the right stuff on the islands in a fun way. And sometimes you didn't worry as much about balance as fun design. One of the interesting things we did with this game is, in order to increase replayability, every time you start, you were very likely to start controlling a different city. So you saw all the maps we had. You might have 100 cities on some of those maps. Every time you started in a different position, it really had a different impact on how you would play the game, how close you were to other enemies, what you wanted to create early on, what your overall game strategy would be. So, for instance, if you're doing this as a 3-player game, whichever player starts with this island is going to have a bit of an advantage in that they've got 4 resource centers. Then this one only has 2. This one has a little better with 3, but this one with 1 is at a huge disadvantage. But by the same token, the one with 4 is going to take longer to conquer this bigger island, and these ones are going to come targeting it as soon as they can. So it was always interesting to think about how the balance would work, because as a 4-player game, yeah, this player's in a bad way. This one looks like they're the best, but they're going to be the target immediately of everybody else, and they're close to everyone else. So they all have their roles. Now, I will admit, I really loved the river-style maps. And a big part of the strategy of this game is how far things are from each other. So artillery has a certain range that it can fire. Battleships and cruisers have a certain range they can fire. Fighters have a certain range they can fly before they have to come back and gas up. Same with bombers. So how far you put things from each other mattered. So for instance, fighters have a range of 25, which means they can go out 12 and then come back 12, and they've got 1 left, so they survive and refuel. So I put something 13 away, it could not be touched by a fighter. Bombers could reach it. They had longer range, a la World War II fighters and bombers. But then they would be leaving their fighter escorts, and your own fighters would take them down as quick as they could. So those distances really mattered, how far the mountains were from the city. If I was up here, I could just start shelling on into this city with my artillery. Get artillery right there. That's the artillery. If it was all open over there, then that wasn't as good a spot for artillery as the artillery being up in the mountain. So I would enjoy building these larger islands. Maybe we'll go ahead and call this AT-AT in honor of JPEG. And then have these crazy little rivers connecting things, because suddenly I've got the option, well, do I want to have a cruiser go all the way down from this city to this city and shell it? Or I want to bring a transport ship this way. You'd have these neat little lakes, perhaps, that would have a bunch of different cities on the lake. Let's go ahead and get back to grass. Oops. Grass. And now you've got all these cities along this lake, and that makes this lake the focus of combat in this game. You're trying to get the combat ships out here to stop the other players as fast as you can becomes more key, especially when it's a bigger lake. That's why some of those worlds you saw where you had this kind of ring around a water area was a lot of fun, because you have the outer waters to fight over and then the inner waters. And it gets tricky deciding what you want to build where. And for most games, I mean, that is what one of my producers used to call those juicy choices. The idea of what you have to sacrifice in order to accomplish what you want to do that matters. Do I build an artillery now, an infantry now? Do I spend all my points trying to get a battleship, spend all that time trying to go for a battleship? Yeah, just all those different calculations you have to take into account in order to succeed. So there were some neat features to this. I saw at the Play City. You could turn off. So right now I'm not actually right off. I thought that turned off my ability to add things. Nope. Seems I'll have to double check. Thankfully, we have in our manual what everything does. And the manual now ships with the game. My God, we shipped this with almost a 100-page manual. Can you imagine that these days? Maybe a 70, 80-page manual. Can you imagine that anymore? Talking about the map editor and everything else. Right on. This will change the terrain in every square that the cursor enters to the current terrain type. That's what it was. That's what it was. So go ahead and change this over to forest. Right on. Yeah. There we go. And right off, we turn that to the normal mode. Or with F2, which we should have had listed there. Yeah. And of course, where you put the forest matter, because that gave, again, more protection to units as they move through. Same with hills. So if you surrounded a town with mountains, you made it a little easier to invade it. You also meant that if they put more defenders in the hills, they could have more defense. PDF and wikis for the win. Yep. Isn't it great to be able to ship an 80-page manual with the game again? I don't know who's writing those manuals. I really need a wiki for this game. That'd be fun. But, yeah, so this would be an interesting one to try and fight. It's obviously pretty small with the 100 by 100, so let's make it a little bigger. Add a whole nother island to do battle upon. Yeah, I love the fill stuff. I'm going to show you how part of that works. Let's fill that area. So now I got a big lake. Whoops, I went outside of the bounds. This is when you need the Control Z. Save early, save often, everybody. Save early, save often. So now I get to carve it out of here. It's more like the early Unreal editors. Got to carve out my map out of the nothingness. All right, that was a good indication of what not to do. But hey, now we got big rivers going through this giant world. Look at all the grasslands. Wait. We're going to write at, weren't we? At. Wow, I was never a good pixel writer, was I? That's a cool river. All sorts of fun with that. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff you ship with games back in the day to extend their longevity. And people were making maps of these all over the place. I'd love to see a lot more of them for Battle of Destiny. I tell you what, I'll give you another 5 minutes and I'll give out a couple Battles of Destiny codes to people. You too can have a game from 1992 you can play on your computer today. You'll have to make a GOG account, but hey, everyone should have a GOG account now, right? That's a cool place for a city. Yeah, and one of the fun things about these kind of map editors is you could disappear. As frustrating as they could be, you could disappear into them for a while, just carving things out, finessing the perfect map for yourself. All kinds of neat things could happen, putting down our limited amount of terrain. Whee, mountains everywhere. Let's do a nice mountain range here. And now we can fill it. Yay! Oh, that's going to be a cool little place for a nicely defended city, won't it? Yeah. Nice and hard to get into that one. Oh, I forgot. You can do the corner world, so you can see the whole thing up there. This is a really useful editing tool. I forgot the corner world was available. Very useful to see how it all connects, how it all wraps around itself. Come see the whole world at once on a bigger scale. At world. Oop, and I hit quit. That was a mistake. I hadn't saved it. Another feature. It's not a bug, it's a feature. You weren't asked to save before you quit. Yeah, there are a few frustrating things about this map editor, I cannot deny. I'm showing you what to avoid. That's exactly what it is. I'm showing you what to avoid. And definitely avoid it with your own map editor. These are crazy problems you can have. Right, fill this all in so that we can fill it with grass. We're going to fill our screen with grass. Nothing better with which to fill a screen, huh? Let's see. All right. So, terrain. Oops, sorry. Edit. Fill. Why don't I just hit F? Oh, well. And fill it does. And then, again, let's get that corner map up. Ah, filled the whole thing again. Yeah, fill you had to be careful with. I got to remember exactly how that worked. You have to make sure there's no leaks in your map. You gotta have a nicely closed off area before you put anything else in it. So if I left a hole in it, the fill leaks out, just kind of like Photoshop. So let's do it again here. All right. Now I should be able to fill all of this with water. Yep, there we go. So always have to be careful with that fill feature. Yeah, usually draw out the grasslands and then fill it on in. So, all right. That's a quick look at the Battles of Destiny map editor. I promised to give out a code. We've had Tim Ryan, Artisan JPEG, Michael Hodges, all comment in the chat. I'm going to roll a D3. Yay for handy dice. And we got A1, Michael Hodges. All right, Michael Hodges, reach out to me. I'll get you a copy of Battles of Destiny. Of course, if others want them, always glad to make that happen. Michael Hodges, reach out to me. Let's get you a copy of Battles of Destiny. All right. So that was the Battles of Destiny map editor. Yeah, Michael Hodges, reach out to info@ggda.org. Or I think you just messaged me on YouTube. We can make that work as well. All right. The next one coming up is our keynote. Thank you all for joining us. I've been looking forward to this. I've seen Chris give a similar presentation before. But again, every time you talk about marketing, it changes so quickly now. You got a lot to take into account with marketing. So I'm going to jump out of this so I can set up the next presentation. And we will be back at 3 o'clock with our keynote, How to Market a Game in 2002. Battle of Destiny, y'all.